Tony Iommi and special riffs. Very special riffs. How do you feel about special riffs, Joey?
Love special riffs.
Some riffs are just so special that
they're special.
They need to be talked about. And it is Pride Month, so we need to talk about these riffs in salutation and, in salute of Pride Month, because we're proud of these riffs. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But it is Pride Month. So
is it going to be Rainbow in the Dark?
Act according. Hey, no,
that's Dio though.
We need we're gonna have to do a sound drop of that. Rainbow in the Dark. During an appearance on the latest episode of Loudwire Nights, Black Sabbath guitarist Tony Iommi was asked to name it. So, just to stop in mid-sentence there, Loudwire Nights is actually pretty cool. I was checking it out, but it's all audio. It's like an audio podcast. So I thought about clipping it, and then I was like, if I was going to do that, I'd want to make it a video and like put Tony's picture against it or something.
Yeah, too much work.
Yeah, I'll just quote the Blabbermouth article. Thanks, Blabbermouth, as transcribed by Blabbermouth. He responded, well, without sounding big-headed, there were a few special riffs. When we first done the Black Sabbath riff, straight away I knew I just had this vibe and feeling it was something so different in them days that you'd never heard that sort of thing before. And I don't know how it all happened. It just sort of come out. And that was the benchmark for that album. Once we'd done Wicked World and Black Sabbath, then the rest of them followed along. And the same with Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and also Into the Void. That was a riff that I really liked. And that was Eddie Van Halen's favorite. Speaking of Eddie.
No, this is Eddie Van Halen, not Eddie Maiden.
Right. Not Eddie Trunk.
Okay.
Not Eddie Spaghetti. Eddie Van Halen. Eddie's favorite, to be honest, Into the Void. He'd always say, play Into the Void. So it was great to hear that. So there's a few of them sort of, for me, Iron Man, there's a lot that really meant something. Well, they've all meant something, but they are the ones that stood out initially. It's interesting to hear stuff like that, because like Eddie Van Halen on his own is like a legendary guitarist / riff writer. So for him to be like enamored with someone like that tells you how legit an OG Tony Iommi is.
Well, Into the Void, that's early 70s, and Van Halen started late 70s, right? So
When interviewer Chuck Armstrong noted it all goes back to the first three notes of the first song on Black Sabbath's debut album, a tritone that's become known as the Devil's Interval, Iommi concurred, yes, it does, which opened a complete can of worms for us. Of course, he said, you name it. They'd come to the show, and oh dear, we got so much from the church and Satanists and God knows what else in the early days. Asked if he had any regrets tied to some of those things, such as the inclusion of religion, Iommi said, it certainly brought everybody's attention to it, so I think it was great. We did that. It was something very different. I didn't even think of it as anything like that. It just appealed to me when I played it, and we all liked it. Then Ozzy came up with this melody line, and Geezer wrote the lyrics for it, so everything just fitted in, and it just sounded right. And that was our launch, really. But of course, in them days, there was no MTV. Does he keep saying "in them days" instead of "those days"? Or
them days, you gotta say it with an English accent.
Back in them days. In them days, we had Spotted Dick and pinching me bobbins, whatever British people say. They have like all these
crumpets,
tea and crumpets, and Spotted Dick taking the piss. Sorry, British people. I know I'm terrible.
Do we have any Brits watching us?
Yeah, we do have we have some UK audience. We have a lot of Sweden. Because of Eric, our lead Viking.
I knew you said Sweden once before. I didn't know.
No, we have some UK audience for sure.
Okay,
a lot of metalheads in the UK. Basically, obviously, USA is our biggest audience, but we have UK, a lot of Latin America too, because Latin America is metal strong.
It is.
But anyway, in them days. Of course, in them days, there was no MTV, so all that stuff, no internet. It was a word of mouth. So you really did have to go and play these places and build up a reputation, either a good reputation or a bad one, whichever way it went. But you had to physically. It had been internet in them days if it had been internet in them days, who knows what would have happened. So
No.
interesting take by Tony Iommi there. And I mean, it's interesting that all these bands, a lot of metal bands specifically, Dio, Sabbath, Slayer, they all use this like occult imagery, even though they're not really satanic if you read into what they're saying.
Well, what's interesting, I can't remember where I read this, if it was an article or a book somewhere or whatever, but somebody made a comment that heavy metal is like the genre of music that is like the most religious in nature, like exploring religion. And like when I read that, I'm like, you know what? It kind of is, whether it's like seeking God or anti-God, like there's a very religious tone to heavy metal.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It examines a lot of the themes deal with religion.
Well, life or death, or
yeah, even the black metal church burner guys, is like that. Their whole thing, their whole ethos and everything. So yeah, that is a good point. And Dio, I mean, Dio's name is Italian for God. Like that was my induction to metal, really, like the Holy Diver record, pulling that out of my dad's record collection and seeing that cover with the demon with the chain and stuff. I'm like, whoa, that's cool. But the messaging in the songs, it's not anti-religious by any stretch.
Yeah,
or anti-Christian.
It's just I'd be curious to know like what percentage of metal written over the years, over the decades, has had religious tones to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question.
Most metal bands, except for like early Pantera.
Yeah. Wait, what did you say? Did you say early Pantera?